Well, how do you deal with an ex who is getting in the way of a new relationship? Our relationship psychologist, John Aiken, joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Kerri Anne.
Now, it is an interesting one. Now, who knows whether the magazines are right about this, but it does seem as if Jen's really hanging out for Brad. And this must happen from time to time in relationships.
Absolutely. It's one of those problems that couples can come up against where you're starting to see someone and you have to deal with their ex-partner, and they can get in the road in any sort of different way. But the issue is that you can't really move forward with your new relationship when they're constantly focused on the past.
Well, you know, there's all sorts of ex-wives and ex-partners out there, and I guess Brad's sort of trying to be nice to Jen because he clearly still cares for her. Is that wrong?
No, I don't think it's wrong. It's all about the boundaries that you put up and whether you're prepared to put your current partner first, because that's the real danger here, that you don't put them first and the ex gets in the road and then ultimately the relationship dissolves.
So an ex who is a needy ex, as would appear on the surface that Jen is, what should Brad do, especially when he's got somebody as strong as Angelina?
Yes. Well, what I would do there is I think you've got to basically firstly talk to someone like Angelina and say...
Well, apparently Angelina sent her a couple of texts that weren't too nice and back off, honey, he's mine now.
Yeah. What I would do is look at being a team here with Angelina and say, how do you want to deal with this? And then with that team approach, you then go to Jen and you say, OK, we've got to create new boundaries, expectations here, and then you make sure you're firm on them and you don't give way. And that way you're prioritising the new relationship.
What happens if it's a bit more complicated and there are children involved? Because let's face it, a lot of ex-husbands or wives do have a bond that will stay forever in children.
Absolutely, and that's where the teamwork comes into it, and getting out on the table all the expectations that are going on, and then making it formal and making sure that you're being as consistent as you can, particularly around the routines with the kids.
Because the kids are the number one priority, and exes don't always understand that, especially if they just want to put a little spanner in the works.
Yeah, that's right. So as you say, keeping those kids as a priority and saying how best do we arrange ourselves so that this works well for them.
Can you, with or without children, can you actually still always remain friends with an ex?
Well, you can, but you've got to make sure that those feelings are at a friendship level. You get in a real hot water when one of the people, your ex, has stronger feelings than that, when they're in love with you, that they can't stop being around you and are generally consumed with what you're doing.
And we've got some of these, signs that people have got a problem. If anybody, morningtalk@9.com.au, if any of these are occurring in your relationship, they want to meet up regularly, they contact you all the time, using pet names.
Yeah, that's right. So you might be with somebody and then they'll get a text from their ex and it'll start with "Hi, sweetie, miss you," signed off with "kiss, kiss," and you're thinking, this is your ex-partner. How about some boundaries?
Yeah, so and if they turn up at all the places they know you're going to be.
That's a big issue. Also, wanting to come around and see the family, for the Sunday roasts, that sort of stuff.
We've got an email from Claire. I've been with my partner for 6 months. We already live together. However, his ex-girlfriend keeps calling our home at random hours and it's causing us both great anguish. Should we change our home phone number? Well,
talk as a team about how you want to deal with it. Then I would suggest you contact the ex and say, look, that's got to stop. And if that's not going to stop and you've gone down that path, then you're looking at changing the phone number.
I guess Claire's got to be certain that he's not playing two sides against the middle.
That's right. That's right. Be sure here that you're not encouraging that behaviour from your ex either. That's very important.
Let's look at the tips then, because I bet there's a whole bunch of people who've recognised some of these issues, because ex-husbands and ex-wives are, 1/3, in fact, almost half of the population. Yeah. And if it's there's not a lot of animosity and they want to get back together because they were the spurned part of the relationship, let's get to the tips of how a girl or a guy can deal with it.
Yeah, well, the first thing is don't have contact with an ex that's totally into you, that wants to sleep with you, that's totally consumed and wants you back. You're going to have to cut ties there.
That's it, full stop.
Absolutely.
Get over it.
Because you're sending a message, it's over, it's not going any further forward now.
Okay, next tip?
Next, what you're looking at doing is, if they don't have feelings for you in that way, then what you're saying is, let's look at the problem behaviours here. It might be that they're popping around to see your parents or ringing you 5 times a day or, constantly asking you for advice. You say, these are the problem behaviours that we've got going on. these are the ones we need to address.
Because there are a lot of exes who were very familiar with the in-laws and probably still want to remain friends.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a hard one.
That's right. So they're wanting to stay friends, so you're rearranging your friendship. The third tip is then creating new expectations. You're not able to drop by unannounced on a Sunday morning.
Stop calling my mother.
That's right. Stop coming around for Christmas dinner, and so what you're doing there is you're rearranging and creating new expectations around the friendship. Then following that, you also need to remind yourself to stop relying on them. Rely on others. If there's some problem with the car, don't go to the ex. Go to somebody else, a good friend or a family member. And then the other tip is stop trying to save them. Because, when you break up with someone, often what happens is you're worried about their feelings, you're wanting to save them, and that puts you in contact with them, and then suddenly you're rekindling something.
That sounds where the Brad and Jen thing's going on, because he's clearly a nice guy, doesn't want to hurt her, doesn't hate her, but, just still wants to look after her.
That's right, and that is a major problem, because what happens is it keeps bringing them back into your life.
And sometimes it can cross that line into infidelity.
Exactly.
Because next week I think it's really worthwhile discussing, can a relationship survive infidelity? Snapshot before, and maybe you've got a view out there, morningtalk@9.com.au. If you've got a question for our relationships expert or a view on what we've discussed today, morningtalk@9.com.au.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about that next week. And there are certain factors that will depend on whether you can recover or not.
Well, it clearly happens a lot, especially with texting and new technology. People are getting caught a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think they're getting caught a lot more, or it's happening more?
I think the ways of getting caught now, that's so much easier that, people are really stumbling across their partners doing, poor behaviour. So
poor behaviour, I love the way you put that. Okay, can your relationship survive infidelity? That's next week. If you've got a view, John Aiken, thank you.